Year 3, this is Mrs. Hepplewhite and I am here to take you through your third geography lesson of this half term. So before we start writing the short date and the title and all of that, we're going to do a quick bit of total recall because it's always important to go over those key facts from the last few lessons. So the three I've got for you today are to name the 4 countries of the UK, tell me what a human feature in geography is and give me an example, and tell me what a physical feature in geography is and give me an example. So pause the video and press play when you are ready for some answers. So of course the 4 countries of the UK are England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. A human feature in geography is something which has been created by humans, and it could be for a variety of purposes. So we thought last week about houses, people might build schools, factories, all sorts of different things for different reasons. And a physical feature in geography is something which has occurred naturally, so with or without human involvement it would still be there, so hills, rivers, mountains, etc. So well done if you got all of those right. Now we've done our total recall, if we move on to today's short date, title and WILF. You can get this written into your red topic book please, and if you finish, have a little look at this picture here and tell me what you see, what it makes you think, and if it makes you wonder anything. Okay, so hopefully you've written in your date and title. Now this picture here is actually of a mountain rescue scene. So of the mountains in the UK, if people get into trouble or if they get stuck, they will be rescued by mountain rescue. So this is someone being helped off of a mountain cliff face. So here's today's WILFs. So bronze today, you are going to know the difference between a hill and a mountain. Silver, you'll be able to name some hills and mountains in the UK. Gold, you're going to understand what hills and mountains are used for. And challenge, you'll do all of those, but you'll also include all of the key vocabulary spelt perfectly in your final piece of work. So if you want to get challenged today, that is what you'll need to do. Your learning powers today are planning, because your final piece of work will require you to plan out how you're going to lay it out and set it out. And questioning, we've got a higher order question in today's lesson, and also lots of other questions to get us thinking. Your key vocabulary today then is hill and mountain, obviously, and we've also got recreational and non-recreational. So a recreational activity is something that is done for enjoyment when not working or at school, so something that's purely for your enjoyment, whereas non-recreational is something that may be done in work or at school or in order to generate wealth, so to make an income, to make some money. So this is your key vocabulary. So if you're going for challenge today, this is the slide that you will have to come back to later to make sure that you've spelt everything correctly. So what are hills and mountains? Do you know any areas of hills or mountains? And where do you think they might be? And make links to last lesson. Is a hill or a mountain a physical or a human feature, and why? So this is a higher order question because it's going to require you to really think about and make reasoning in order to answer. So press pause and press play when you're ready for some answers. So hopefully you've had a little think if you do know any areas of hills or mountains and where they might be. You might know loads, you might not know many. That's fine either way. I can tell you that a hill or a mountain is a physical feature because it is something that is naturally occurring, whether humans were here or not. We would have hills and mountains, so it's a physical feature. So what are hills and mountains? This here is what we call in geography a topographical map. And what it does is it shows us how high the land is in certain areas of the country. So this here is called a legend. Okay, you can see there's different colours on this little bar here on this legend. We start with dark green at the bottom, it moves up to yellow, orange, through to red, a bit purpley, and then right up to white. And what that does is it tells us how high the land is. So if we're right down the bottom here with the dark green, that's zero meters above sea level, so pretty much as flat as you can kind of go really. So all of these areas here that are dark green are very, very flat. Anything that's a slightly lighter green means that it's slightly higher. Anything that's yellow, slightly higher again. So you can see quite a lot of Wales is quite high ground. Obviously, as you get further up into Scotland, it's higher. Then we've got the red here. So some areas of Scotland here in the Highlands, they're very red. Not much down where we are though. And as you get up to purple and up to white, that is where you would have the highest points. And I'm looking really closely, and I don't know if I can see any really white areas of land. So you might only find those really high ones in different countries and different mountain ranges. Okay, So the different colours show you the different heights of the ground above sea level. So green areas are the lowest and red areas are the highest, and that shows you that on this here, which is called the legend. So what are the highest and lowest areas of ground in the UK? So the highest point of the UK is at the top of Ben Nevis in Scotland, which stands an impressive 1,344 metres. So if you can try and picture the metre stick that you have in all of your classrooms, it's 1,344 of those placed on top of each other, which is really quite high. So that's the highest point of the United Kingdom. And the lowest point of the United Kingdom is a place called Holme Fen in Cambridgeshire, which sits at 9 feet below sea level. So it's actually below the level of the sea, which is quite a difficult thing to get your head around sometimes. That is the lowest place in the UK. So what is the difference then between a mountain and a hill? This is what you're going to need to know in order to get bronze today. Put simply, a mountain is taller and steeper to climb than a hill. Okay, that's the really simple reason. But here are some more official reasons. So a hill is a natural landform that extends above surrounding terrain, surrounding land, whereas a mountain is a large natural landform that extends above surrounding terrain, and it usually forms in a peak. So mountains usually have this kind of pointy peak at the top, whereas hills are much more rounded. Hills are less than this amount of feet, I'm not going to read it all out to you, and mountains are higher than this amount of feet. So you don't have to remember that completely off the top of your head, but we know that hills aren't as high as mountains. Hills are less steep to climb than mountains, they're much steeper, and hills are easier to climb, whereas a mountain is much more challenging. So those are kind of the official reasons why, okay? So that's what you're going to need to know in order to get bronze. We're going to take a closer look at some hills and mountains in the UK using the magic of Google Earth now. I'm only going to show one to you to save time on this video, but you can use Google Earth at home if you get permission, and you can have a look at any of these other hills and mountains that I've put here. But this one here is Scawfell Pike, which is in England, and this is a Google Earth image. Now it might be a little bit slow, so it's a bit slow to load, but you can see this is an actual satellite image, so you can see how rocky the ground is. And you can see where there are raised areas as well. All of these here are paths, so in order to climb, lots of different paths to climb. If I zoom out a little bit here, we can see some water around it as well. This is all the different places around. These little symbols here, hills, mountains. Yeah, this here is Scawfell Pike, and it's in the Lake District National Park, which is up closer to the north of England. So yeah, if you'd like to have a look at Google Earth and you'd like to have a bit more of an explore, please feel free to do that after the lesson. So here are some names of hills and mountains in the UK. You're going to need these in order to get silver. So either make a little note now or know to come back to this slide later. So hills in the UK, I've chosen one from each of the countries. We've got Precipice Hill, that's in Wales, Glentilt in Scotland, St Martha's Hill in England, and Cave Hill in Northern Ireland. And mountains, we've got Snowdonia in Wales, Ben Nevis in Scotland, Scafell Pike in England, and Slieve Donard in Northern Ireland. So those are the names of some hills and mountains. So remember, these here are going to be a lot less steep and a lot smaller, a lot shorter, if you like, than the mountains, whereas the mountains are going to be a lot taller, a lot harder to climb, and they will have peaks on the top. So what's it like in the hills? Okay, look at these images here. Think about what the weather's like. What do you think it would feel like if you were on this hill? So pause the video while you look at these images and have a think about those two questions, and press play when you're ready to go. So obviously it depends on the weather on the day, because this picture here is a beautiful blue sky, whereas these look a lot more drizzly. Generally, it's quite windy on hills and mountains because you're much higher above sea level, so this can also make it feel a lot colder. So windy and cold quite often, but it can also be, you know, beautiful blue sky and sunny or rainy depending on the weather that day. So what do people like to do in the hills and mountains? So it says to have a think. I know you can see some of them here anyway, but have a think of what sort of things people will do in hills and mountains. This is the gold today, so if you're going for gold, which I'd like most of you to try to do, this is the slide you'll need. So hills and mountains can be used for lots of recreational purposes, such as cycling, walking, skiing. There aren't many natural skiing ranges in the UK. The only ones are in Scotland, I believe, where there's actually enough snow that's fallen on the mountains to ski, but you can ski. Kite flying, because it's very windy. Climbing, obviously. And camping. Lots of people might like to go camping in the mountains or on hills. And non-recreational activities, so the ones that aren't done purely for enjoyment, are storing water. So we build large dams in order to store water in hills and mountain ranges. Generating electricity using these wind turbines, because again, it's very windy on hills and mountains. Growing crops, rearing livestock, and growing trees. They're non-recreational things. So those are things that aren't done purely for enjoyment. They will have either some sort of monetary gain out of them or something that will benefit the environment. So those are the things that you're going to have to remember in order to get gold today. So your activity for today then, year 3. So bronze, you're going to explain the difference between a hill and a mountain. Silver, you need to name at least 2 hills and 2 mountains in the UK. Now on the slide before I gave you 4 of each, so that should be fine for you to just do 2 of each. Gold, you're going to list 2 recreational and 2 non-recreational uses for hills and mountains in the UK and draw a picture to match each one. And challenge, you'll do all of that, but including all of the key vocabulary from the slide, and make sure it's spelt perfectly. Now, as always, I've got a waggle, what a good one looks like for you on the next slide. I'm sorry that it's a little bit faint, but that's because it's in pencil. But if you pause the video, I think you'll be able to read it. So you can see I've got my date and title at the top. My example of bronze here, a hill and a mountain are different. Hills are more rounded and are less steep and lower. Mountains have a peak and are steeper and higher. Now you don't have to write it exactly like that word for word, but you have to explain the difference between a hill and a mountain. For silver, I've listed two hills and 2 mountains in the UK. I picked those 2, you could pick 2 different ones. And for gold, I've chosen 2 recreational activities. So I chose kite flying and camping and drew a picture and coloured it in for both. And for non-recreational use, I chose generating electricity and growing trees. I drew a picture and coloured it in for both. And I double checked that I spelt the key vocabulary right: mountain, hill, recreational, non-recreational. So in the end, I got challenge and I popped that at the top. So that is your activity for today, year 3, is to present a beautiful piece of work in your topic books, a mixture of writing and pictures, covering all of those things in the WILFs. Remember, if you get stuck, flick back through this video where all the information is there for you, or ask a question on the relevant channel on Teams. Don't forget to send a picture of your lovely learning at the end to your teacher via Teams. And I hope you enjoy this lesson, and I will see you next week for our next geography lesson. Take care, bye!